9 years.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
All right, welcome. Welcome to the September 19th meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm Kevin Kassier and continue to be honored to be able to say that. Thank you to Kyle McCormick and Brittany Freund for being greeters today. Way to go, way to step up. Good job out of you. We don't have a moment of inspiration person today, so I'll be covering the Pledge of Allegiance four-way test. But before I do that, we're going to try something a little different. So I've been asking for folks to sign up as they walk out of the room here at our table out front. But that hasn't been working too well. So here's what we're going to try, based on great coaching from our board yesterday. So Kitty has a sign-up sheet in her hand, and it is going to be going around from table to table. So we're going to make it really easy for you. If you're moved to be a greeter, which is a blast, where you get to meet and greet everybody that comes in the room, low pressure, put your name on there for a greeter. If you'd like to do the moment of inspiration and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance four-way test, there's a sign up for that as well. So give that some thought as it's coming around the tables, and we're going to get this thing filled up today. Okay, now I'd like you to please stand and we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance in the four-way test. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the four-way test.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And now greet your fellow Rotarians.
John, it's good to see you. Welcome, Caleb.
Hey, thank you very much, Jordan.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We have one guest today, I'm going to claim him, a guest of mine today. We have Caleb Bruce, attorney with Brown Winnick Law Firm. He's being hosted by President-elect Tim Lowlitz, so thank you, Tim. Caleb, you want to stand up and we'll recognize you? Okay, we have a table flyer on all the tables. So I'm going to tell you the story behind that. So it's sponsored today by Christina Smith, and she's inviting us all to help her celebrate Community Support Advocates' 20th anniversary of Momentum Arts Program and their exhibition of works of growth and recovery, highlighting amazing artists all over central Iowa with disabilities and mental illness. I hope you can join her on October 3rd or 4th at Mainframe Studios for this meaningful event. Thanks to Christina for her $50 donation to the Rotary Club Des Moines Foundation to sponsor the flyer. So we haven't had one of these in a while, but if you have something that you want to promote and you want to put flyers on the table, a $50 donation to the Rotary Club of Des Moines makes that happen. So thank you, Christina. And now it's hard to believe, but we're going to be heading in to the time of coat season. And now this is one of my favorites, and I'm sure one of many of your events where we make a positive impact in our community. So our Community Service Committee is kicking off Operation Warm Rotary Coat Drive again this year. And you can help buy a new coat for a child in need. The coats are donated to the Orchard Place Keep Kids Warm Drive. And it's they buy them very efficiently, $25 gets a coat to a young person. There's more info on your tables about this. So sign up to donate as many coats as you can. Your Rotary count will be billed for the donation. The goal this year from the committee is 300. So we do really well on this project year after year after year. So think about signing up and being generous. Deadline is October 10th. All right, now's the moment when you all get smarter today. Yes, you get a great lunch and you get smarter, and hopefully you'll get a chuckle here shortly. So this is the learning time. So did you know? Okay, let me see that. All right, is Chuck Kuba here? No, okay, so Chuck gave me this idea a while back. So I would welcome, if anybody's got one of these things that might be interesting to share, send them my way. So I learned, maybe you guys know this, I learned from Chuck, where did the term devil's advocate come from? Devil's advocate. Anybody know where that originated? Okay, I didn't either. So here's the amazing story. It's an official position within the Catholic Church. It's the one who argued against the canonization or sainthood of a candidate to uncover any character flaws or misrepresentation of the evidence to be canonized. So, devil's advocate came from the Catholic Church. All right, now completely unrelated today. Do the graphic? All right. Kitty, we do a great job with those graphics. So. How much horsepower does a horse have? How much horsepower does a horse have? One. You would think so. The Iowa State Fair in 1925 calculated there is 15 horsepower in one horse, believe it or not. I won't go through the calculations, but 15 horsepower in one horse. So there you go. You've now learned two things today and leaving here smarter. And now for a laugh or maybe a chuckle is former President Skeet Wooten, who's going to lead us in a Rotarian on the floor laughing moment.
Really, that's it? Chuckle. One horse has 15 horsepower? I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense. Anyway, well, today, as you know, our speaker is from Point Sherman Place, and Point Sherman Place always does some very interesting things. They have plays there, they have beautiful artwork. They also host mysteries. For example, Doug Saltzgaber got married there, so.
That's a mystery.
That's a mystery. Anyway. You're such a romantic, Doug. Trying to come up with something that's interesting and somewhat, hopefully humorous every now and then is not the easiest thing in the world. That's why Doug and I do it, because we don't really have any clue what we're doing. But sometimes you can get inspiration from strange places. Now, the last 2 Thursdays, I was in Bermuda on vacation, and I understand there was a slide with a shark that looked like it was attacking, and we did not see any sharks, but we did see a couple of saloons. And you can get some very interesting things that are said in saloons or on the walls in saloons. And there were 2 in Bermuda in particular that shone out. One place was the pickled onion, surprise, surprise, and the other was the raveled sleeve. Anyway, great quotations from the bars in Bermuda. There was a sound in their voices that suggested rum. Robert Louis Stevenson said that. My wife particularly liked this one. She said, "Come quickly, I'm tasting stars." And Dom Perignon said that when he first discovered champagne. Does anybody know what Pablo Picasso, speaking of learning, what his last words were before he died? "Drink to me." Apparently these aren't very funny. Dean Martin, noted philosopher, said, if you drink, don't drive. And you also don't putt. Okay. A couple of golfers here got that. Winston Churchill said the water was not fit to drink. To make it palatable, we had to add whiskey. But by diligent effort, I learned to like it. That's it. You were much too generous with that.
Okay, now for our program, Deborah Peckham will come up and introduce our keynote speaker. Deborah?
There's Caitlin Clark there for a minute. Thank you, Kevin. It's my pleasure today to introduce Robert Warren. Robert was hired as the executive director of White Sherman Place September of 2015 and was given the new title of Chief Executive Officer in 2021 after successfully leading the organization through the COVID pandemic. His decorated career has included positions such as Associate Producer at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C., Executive Producer for Creative Vision Entertainment in Washington, D.C., Executive Director of Hartford Performing in Hartford, Connecticut, and Director of Community Engagement at the Van Weasel Performing Arts Hall in Sarasota, Florida. He started his arts administration career in Cedar Falls as the first general manager for the newly restored Oster Regent Theater, where he was instrumental in bringing the Cedar Falls Main Street back to life. So it appears that Robert is somewhat of a one-man AED. You all know what AED is, right? Automated external defibrillator. Because that seems like what he has done here in Des Moines. He took a gorgeous mansion that had been a theater and a performing arts hall for many years with a pretty rocky history. And until he was here, I think there's probably maybe some peaks on the EKG every now and then, but really just couldn't get the life back into it again. And lo and behold, Robert came with a secret sauce, or his defibrillator, and today, for 9 years almost, the hall is rarely dark. 7 days a week, the hall in the theater, and it's something for everybody. There are shows that have been there in the last 9 years that I would pay big money for, and there's some that you couldn't pay me enough money to go there. So it's for every demographic. So we're really happy that he's here, and that he's going to tell us about what's next. And lastly, he's without missing all of his points here, the very proud father of his 2 adult sons and his service in the U.S. Army as a communications specialist for the White House Communications. Please join me in a warm rotary welcome for Robert Warren.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
So, thank you, Deborah. I don't use any notes, so you can cut me off when I get to my 20-minute limit. But we do have some beautiful visuals. When I arrived in 2015, I was hired quickly to help bring Hoyt Sherman Place back to the relevance radar. So I had to learn all of this information very quickly in order to know how to do it best. But some of you may or may not know that Hoyt Sherman was a real person, and he came to Des Moines 3 years before it was even a city, appointed by President Zachary Taylor to build the first post office and see if Fort Des Moines could actually be sustained as a city. 3 years later, on September 22nd, it was actually incorporated as a city. He fell in love with it and decided that this is where he wanted to plant his roots. You may also know that he is the youngest brother of General William Tecumseh Sherman. Both of them served under President Lincoln during the Civil War. But when he came here, there were 231 inhabitants in Fort Des Moines, and there were no single eligible females. So he went back on horseback to his hometown of Lancaster, Ohio, and proposed to his childhood sweetheart and convinced Sarah that this would be a good place to come to. And so they moved to Des Moines, lock, stock, and barrel, and set up housing here. Hoyt was a self-taught lawyer. He started helping get the railroad rights to go across Iowa. He was very, very instrumental in building the city. He built the first two-story office building. He opened the Bank of Sherman, which eventually became Iowa State Bank. And at the time, they had already 3 children. 2 of them died in early infancy, and it was all because of the drinking water. So Hoyt and his partners decided we need to have a waterworks and clean drinking water, and the other 4 children survived to adulthood. Always, always, always continued to give back to the city that he loved. After founding the bank and being successful in the real estate world, he decided that he would buy some acreage, which is now Sherman Hill. It was originally Oak Hill. Bought 5 acres for $100.50. 50 cents was the lawyer's fee. Try to get that kind of deal today. And he knew eventually that they would build a house there on that property. But Hoyt and his family also partnered up with B.F. Allen and Charles Polk, and they each invested $100,000 and created Equitable Iowa Insurance, the very first insurance company east of the Mississippi, with the help of his older brother, who was in banking in New York at that point. Equitable Iowa was still standing. You could probably see it out the front windows of here. It's right at the corner of 7th and Locust. It's a beautiful Gothic revival building. Continued to give back, even to the point when his wife Sarah became ill with what essentially was a common cold, and there was no hospital in Des Moines. So Hoyt reached out to the Sisters of Mercy in Davenport, and he vacated his entire mansion, and it served as the very first Mercy Hospital for 3 years, while he helped him acquire the land to build the big one. So that's sort of the backstory of Mr. Sherman, and now we'll get into some pretty stuff. So the top left black and white corner, whoops. That top black and white corner photo there is the original Sherman Mansion, which opened in 1877. He built it for $105,000. Currently today, the entire campus is appraised at $36.5 million, so he got a good bargain. It had 8 bedrooms, 27 rooms total, and he raised most of his children there. And also in that photo, you will notice this was from 1907. And I'll explain to you why I know that. But when Hoyt passed away in 1904, all of his kids had moved out of the area. Because it had been used as Mercy Hospital, a lot of the furniture and fixtures had been removed for sterilization purposes. They actually did surgeries in the basement of Hoyt Sherman Place. You could have any surgery for $5. We found the logbook. Didn't matter what you were having removed or added on, it was $5. And it was 25 cents if you had to spend the night extra. So Hoyt passes away, his siblings came back, appraised the house, and they decided that the best thing that they could do for their father and for the city would be to gift the mansion and the 5 acres to the city of Des Moines, and the only stipulation would be that it forever be called Hoyt Sherman Place. So the city agreed to it. Times were tough in the city of Des Moines. They didn't have any finances to fix up the mansion, so they literally mothballed the house and declared the front lawn as the first official city park, and the Parks and Recs Department had control of the property. 2 years later, very, very fortunate for all of us, the Des Moines Women's Club came knocking. They'd outgrown their meeting space above the library, which is now the World Food Prize. And these tenacious ladies said, we've got a deal for you. We will rent the mansion for our clubhouse for $1 a year for 10 years, and because we already have a substantial art collection, we will build an art gallery and an auditorium. So that gray addition there was the very first. So in 1907, Women's Club got the lease. By 1908, the gallery was built. They put all their artwork in there, and within 10 years, they became the most popular club in town. They were bursting at the seams. They gutted the second floor of the mansion. All the bedroom walls were removed so they had more meeting space. And by 1917, when their lease was about to expire, they went back to the city and they said, we got a better deal for you. How about if you give us a 100-year lease at $1 a year, and we will build a spectacular auditorium. So the auditorium in the bottom picture here was added on. Ironically, it was Mrs. Fred K. White's, Fred White's grandmother, who was the president of the Women's Club, that just with a handshake deal with the bankers said, can we do this? And they said, go ahead. And so they did a bond referendum. Fred's grandfather got the contract to build the theater, of course. But after the design and everything was done, they signed the agreement to start building in, I think it was November of 1917, and the next day, the United States entered World War I. So the building was mothballed. It didn't start construction until 1922, opened in grand style 100 years ago, January 23. The best part of that story is it was designed pre-amplification. So there's 18-inch alabaster walls, curved ceilings, perfect acoustics from the stage to the back wall of the balcony. They didn't modify any of that, even though 5 years later they were talking movies and things, so thank God for that small change. In addition to rooting around in the attic and finding a $4.5 million painting as we were about to start our expansion process, I found original blueprints, so we knew what we had to work with and how we could enhance and complement the 3 parts of the structure. We started bringing in more and more artists. My first season arriving, they had done 17 headliner acts the year before. Their best year was about a $235,000 loss. And so I said, let's bring in some stars. Let's bring in some A-list talent from all genres. We had Dave Chappelle and Lyle Lovett and you name it. We started bringing them in and we were filling it up and we were selling out the space. So we knew we needed more accommodations. When the Women's Club had the auditorium, it was really just their clubhouse to educate and entertain the members of their club and a guest. So there were no backstage accommodations. The little bitty tiny bathrooms, if any of you ever did a dance recital or seen it, they looked like Fort Leavenworth prison rooms. They were gray slate, tiny, no windows. So we launched a campaign in 2018 to do a 9,000 square foot, 3-level addition on the backside of the theater that seamlessly blended into the existing structure. 2 bay loading docks for the bigger shows that were wanting to come in. Martina McBride was one of the first. Chris Isaac was there. He was back again last night, lap dancing with half of the people in the sold-out show. He's got a lot of energy for his age. But we needed this to not only enhance the experience for the artist, but also we added classroom space, green room space, room for all of our offices to move out of the mansion, so eventually we could restore that second floor where we had been in a fishbowl, and some cool VIP spaces. So now the star dressing rooms are light and bright and they're accessible. We have had numerous artists, due to age and other reasons, couldn't access the stage because it wasn't handicap accessible. Now it's more of a seamless process. These rooms are available for meetings. And continuing on, so that beautiful space was finished. We got our certificate of occupancy March 10th of 2020, fully paid for, ready to roll. We had Nate Bergazzi for 2 sold-out shows, and 2 days later we were shut down for COVID. So we went from $5 million worth of ticketing revenue to support the operations and the 15 full-time staff to $0. And I thought it was gonna last a week, maybe 2 weeks. You know, everybody said spring will come, it'll get warm, the COVID will go away. 18 months. So having just finished that big expansion project and raising $5 million and no work for those 15 full-time employees, I went back to our board, and fortunately, early on, when the foundation was created and the city agreed to turn over the rights to the foundation in 1995, and the Women's Club, who could no longer maintain the facility, said, we will give all the contents to the care and protection of the foundation forever and ever to make it better. It's about to be our 30th anniversary. But one of the conditions of the city was they needed to sell enough of their art collection to put $1 million into a permanent endowment fund at the community foundation. So this was before cell phone days. They brought a gentleman in from Sotheby's in New York. Annabelle Wonders was the director at the time. She had picked out 5 paintings that she thought could get them to the $1 million. Well, the one that he landed on was a lost Frederick Edwin Church painting that they had mislabeled with the wrong artist and the wrong name. And he saw it and he said, I think this one might get you your $1 million. Do you know that this is to the memory of Cole? It's a Hudson River Valley painting. It's been lost in the art world for many years. So they packed it up, they shipped it off to New York, and sure enough, it sold at auction for $4.2 million. Bill and Melinda Gates were the buyers. I'm gonna ask for it back in the divorce. They don't need to fight over that one. We're a good success story now. But that money was put into an account. The foundation was allowed to use 5% interest each year for maintenance and operations. A lot of years they went way into the corpus of it. It was down to about 3.1 when I arrived. But in that historical years of producing more shows, we got it back up over 5 million. So COVID hits. We were going to restore the second floor of the mansion in 2030, I think was on our target timeline. And so I went back to our architects, Estes Construction and Mike Simons, and I said, what if we move up the mansion restoration during COVID? Building's shuttered, I've got all these employees, maybe they can do stuff. And sure enough, architects were willing to work with us, Estes was willing. My box office manager that was pissed having to refund all of those tickets, she was the first one to ask for a sledgehammer and started busting out walls. So this was from the blueprints that I showed you earlier, the original layout of the second floor, which had 4 independent bedroom chambers. As it was gutted, you can see in the top 2 photos, that's when our offices were there with a lovely carpeting and one existing fireplace that had not been removed, and we started tearing it down to the bare wood and walls. We hired Zach Bunkers, who's the historic preservationist for the Capitol. He came in and peeled away 11 layers of paint, found the original colors, we found the flooring, and because we were added to the National Historic Trust in 25 years prior, we had to adhere to all of those historic preservation standards. So this is the first of the 2 bedrooms after we completely finished and refurbished them. They're now open to the public Monday through Friday, free of charge. And as this project started to get out into the public, we had so many family members stepping forward and saying, I've got Victorian furniture at my grandmother's, I've got Victorian this, so we had period-specific stuff. That whole bedroom set was donated by Don Gulick, and the painting above the fireplace was in memory of his daughter. But if you notice at the top, those beautiful chandeliers, we had to find authentic 1877 gas electric chandeliers for 4 bedrooms. And so Mike Simonson and I budgeted that at $50,000. thinking maybe we can find 4, they're not gonna match, but different bedrooms. Lo and behold, on an eBay auction site, he texted me on a Friday morning, he was driving out of town, he said, this might be a hoax, but somebody claims they have 4 original gas electric chandeliers with all the original hand-blown globes on an eBay site, and the starting bid is $2,000. I got all 4 of them for $2,800. I nearly had a mini stroke. I did the next day because the Packers lost, that's how I remember. But, got them, it was from an auction house in upstate New York, and it turns out these were salvaged from one of the houses on the Roosevelt estate in upstate New York that was being refurbished. So the next thing was, how do we get them here to Des Moines? The art dealer from the locale said, hey, I got this guy from Wisconsin that drives back and forth and delivers stuff. So called him up, told him my story. He was so excited to be able to bring these to our restoration project that he did it for $200, and now they're all there. So having to put the walls back in according to the original blueprints was not the most fun, but you can see here that fireplace. We also found on an auction site in Lancaster, Ohio, which ironically is Hoyt Sherman's birth town. They shipped it out. Unfortunately, the top mantelpiece cracked. So our friends at Roat Stone said, we can fix it for you. We fixed it, and we got it for free because the insurance company paid out on it and said, we don't want it back. See if you can notice the crack when you come visit. So those are the bedrooms now. Their daughter Helen was the youngest and lived in the house the longest, so we dedicated that bedroom to her honor. Beautiful fireplace, all original Victorian furniture. There was also staff quarters on the back side of the mansion. If you come through for a show, you'll see a couple of hidden doors, and there's a whole back side to the mansion that's not open to the public. Kitchen, laundry room, and there were 2 staff accommodations on the 2nd and 3rd floor. And so the historic preservation people weren't going to allow us to fix those rooms because they weren't accessible. But when I found the note that they were designated as staff, and we were only going to use them as staff, they allowed us to fix up those 2 rooms. They were previously nicknamed the Creepy Doll Room, because some well-intended Des Moines Women's Club member in the 1940s redid the room and got all these antique dolls that had the lids that moved like that. So the artists love to go in there and take their photos with them, but we've moved them to the attic. So that's it in its finished state. It now houses the Des Moines Women's Club staff person and our director of operations. Very fortunate for us, when they gutted the 2nd floor, they saved 1 archway and 1 set of the corbels, so they were able to take those down and recreate them. So all of the rooms now have the original fixtures. The doors had to be rebuilt. They took apart the 1 existing transom door. Each one of the doors has 172 pieces of wood in it, 5 different types of wood. They did a fabulous job. Some more destruction photos. In the 40s, when the Women's Club was super popular, they added a 2nd floor onto the kitchen. That was my office for the first 6 years. I could see all kinds of fun things happening at the Conlin apartment buildings behind me on a daily basis, but we decided to turn that into a research and archive library. By this point, Des Moines Women's Club was down to about 120 members, mostly older women, hadn't been able to get up to the 2nd floor that they loved for 30-some years. So I found in the corner of that, there was an old dumbwaiter. That's what it looks like when it's finished. Here's the dumbwaiter. We hired an engineer, and he figured out that if we removed that dumbwaiter, he could build an accessible lift to the 2nd floor from the main floor of the kitchen so that it would be accessible on that whole 2nd floor. And there it is, completed. I can't tell you the joy of like Ann Driscoll or some of the older members of the Women's Club to be able to take them up to see the 2nd floor and fully restored. This room here was one of the other bedrooms. It's called the Dietz room because also in their heyday, Mrs. Dietz, who was a school marm with a very, very long ruler, lived in the house and controlled the house and took care of all of the activities of the Women's Club and never let the fires go out. She was paid $75 a month, but she had accommodations. This is Zach Bunkers in the process of stripping away the paint. He found original stencils. You'll see in the bottom corner there, we saved one piece and framed it. That's what he discovered as the paint was coming away, and he was able to recreate all of that and filled it out throughout the mansion. These are the exquisite wooden floors. Fortunately or unfortunately, we have to keep them covered with rugs. The salt and stuff from winter traffic would really destroy them. But that beautiful inlay floor, that's the library there. Hoyt Sherman's final portrait is hanging above it. During the 2 years that it was mothballed and closed, vandals did come in and steal a lot of the fixtures. So that's a replacement fireplace, but in that center square of the floor, it had the same beautiful mosaics of the one. So they did a good job of taking things away. The grand staircase, grand foyer, all that original wood. I told you that the original cost to build the mansion was $105,000. Those gorgeous arched doorways, one single half of those are appraised at $110,000. Also with 7 different kinds of wood. And last but not least, Des Moines Women's Club actually commissioned in 1909 Charles Mumford Robinson, who was a protege of Olmsted, who designed Central Park. They paid him $7,500 to come to Des Moines for 6 months and do an entire cityscape, boulevards, parks. This is an emerging city, what do we need? And one of the things in that plan that never got built was a beautiful plaza, similar, if you've ever been to Central Park, almost all those entrances off of 5th Avenue, you step up a few stairs. So he had designed this performance platform for the Des Moines Women's Club, 1909. He said the neighborhood was screaming out for children playing and live music on the lawn. It never got built. In 1926, after the theater was added on, the very first female landscape architect to graduate from University of Iowa, somebody clap, Etta Bradwell, decided to enhance the plan and put in all of these landscaping trees lining that sidewalk. The trees got planted, but again, they didn't have the money to do the plaza. So last summer, in order to accommodate our Jazz in July celebrations, we raised another $500,000 and completed the outdoor plaza and did 6 concerts this summer on it. That was the dedication ceremony with the Ice Cicerettes. Now primarily for Jazz in July, but other warm-up groups that come into it. So now fast forward, we finished our centennial season. Our goal was to do 100 shows in that year. Not all of them had to be ticketed. And then last year, our fiscal year, without even trying, we did 102 headliner shows. We had our biggest year ever with $6.8 million in ticket sales. We had 100,000 people go through our door. And we make sure that we always keep the tickets as affordable as possible as a nonprofit foundation. So our model right now, I worked at the Kennedy Center for years, and I thought subscriptions were dying. We had the opera, we had the ballet, we had the symphony, everything. So my business model is we announce a new artist every single week. The shows are about 90 days out. They go on sale, it keeps us relevant, and our membership has skyrocketed. So for a $100 membership, which supports keeping the mansion and gallery open free of charge, and all of our free programs for Des Moines Public Schools, you get a pre-sale code for those artists that are coming in. So we do a great business, people are happy. I'm really thrilled that the artists have spread the word as quickly as we could, so we're no longer a flyover stop. Most of the artists will do 20 or 30 dates, and 9 times out of 10, they want to make sure they got Hoyt Sherman on it. Lyle Lovett has been one of our biggest proponents. He tells all his friends and people out in the industry that everybody should play at Hoyt Sherman Place at least once. So the campus is fully built out now. There's no other room to grow unless we add a stacked parking garage, but we won't do that. We still have free parking, and our friends over at Unity Point use our lot during the day for classes and training and new people coming into town. And so the reciprocal trade-off at 6 o'clock, they flip up all their gates across the street and let us use it for overflow parking. So we're nestled in, we love the neighborhood, and he mentioned Pablo Picasso. So the Sherman family is still going strong. I equated them to being the 1800s versions of the Kennedys. The dad wanted all of his kids to go out and manifest destiny. The country was just starting to bloom. He instilled in them that they should move out of Ohio, go to different places. Of course, General Sherman did all of his great things. A lot of people don't know, but the middle brother, John Sherman, created the Sherman Antitrust Act, which is still used today. He was a lawyer at New York Supreme Court. And Sarah went on to write lots and lots of books. His other daughter, Adeline, had a daughter named Sarah. She ended up as a Rhodes Scholar at Yale, met this French guy, wasn't a French name, his name was Gerald Murphy. His parents owned Mark Cross pens, which was a very popular pen brand back in the day. And the parents didn't like her. They thought she was lower class, and her parents felt the same way. So Gerald and Sarah, Hoyt's granddaughter, moved to Paris. They were tired of living in the United States. And their neighbor was Pablo Picasso, who was just a struggling artist. He paid for Sarah's rent for the house for 3 months if she would agree to pose for three of his paintings. And at the same time, they taught Gerald, her husband, how to paint. So both Sarah and Gerald Murphy are prominently displayed at Metropolitan Museum of Art and Picasso's works. Picasso thought that these were the two coolest kids on the planet. It was the 1920s. They were the it couple. So he introduced them to Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway said, come to Key West for a few months. So they went to Key West, and from that relationship, they were introduced to F. Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald, who also said, these are the coolest kids ever. So they invited them the next summer to come to Long Island and stay with F. Scott and Zelda. And they are the featured characters in F. Scott's Tender is the Night. So, and not to leave anybody out, his, I think, be 5 generations removed, Anthony Sherman III is a Super Bowl champion with the Kansas City Chiefs 3 years ago. So there you have it. Any questions? How did you on time? Oh, good. Yes.
So it's clear you're passionate about what you do. I'm wondering, 9 years in, what is it that keeps your passion fueled and fired and not bogged down with the things that, can get to you? And what can we look forward to next?
There's a million details that go through a year, but I try not to think of them, just do one day at a time. But I'm a small town Wisconsin kid, Friendship, Wisconsin, population 738. And I was very fortunate that Donna Shalala was education director at University of Madison, and this teacher training program, they sent 6 novice teachers into my middle school to do arts integration as a way of improving test scores in an underperforming Title I school. And I was one of those lucky kids. And same parents, same house, same superintendent, same principals. I had the same first grade teacher as my mother and father. Neither of my parents graduated high school. My 2 older brothers did not graduate high school. And my oops baby sister, who came along 7 years after me, didn't graduate high school. That was different. So that led to my passion in the arts. I wanted to go into medicine. I got a scholarship to University of Madison, and then my high school guidance counselor said, why don't you audition for a scholarship in New York? I was at age 13, I was involved with a community theater group and had done 25 shows, and I thought, what the heck? So I auditioned, I got a full scholarship to go up to New York and never looked back. But now I'm the caretaker for our 263-acre farm in Wisconsin, and Mom's still there, and my kids are out of college, so I thought, what's the best of the best jobs I've ever had? Cedar Falls was a great opportunity. As much as I loved working at the Kennedy Center and all the Kennedy Center honors, I was bothered by the fact that a lot of the audience were more important than what was on the stage, and they were getting up and leaving at intermission, or they, 10 minutes before show, they had to beat traffic to get around the Beltway. So I wanted to go somewhere where I could make a difference. Yes.
I'm an avid live music attendee, and Hoyt Sherman's definitely my favorite venue in town. Have you experienced any struggle to book acts now that the behemoth of Live Nation is planted roots here?
No, because I think it's the popularity of the venue and the rapport we built up with our co-promoters. Almost every single one of our events, smart contracting, it's a no-risk contract. So we sidle up with a great marketing director and a business manager and a co-promoter, Mammoth Live out of Kansas City. We work a lot with Sam Summers and First Fleet, not so much anymore, but he's doing the other venues. But we have not seen any attrition in the number of artists wanting to come. Our calendar is, we have artists on hold. As I said, we only announced them out. We have 181 artists already under contract waiting to be announced as it comes into the cycle. So when you're budgeting for a nonprofit board and they're looking, you no longer have to be determined things listed in it. You've got this one, what? So it's a better position to be, but we play nice. I think Des Moines is very, very fortunate. All the other cities that I've worked in, you could have 3 performing arts centers that are the exact same size, and they all want to do Broadway, or they can only do. Des Moines is perfect. You got a 150-seat Stoner Theater all the way up to Wells Fargo, and everything in between. So I hope they continue to play nice. Yeah. You good? Oh.
This is more of an observation than anything. Recently, I was in Chicago at Orchestra Hall, and I found myself comparing that to Hoyt Sherman, and thinking, what a gem we have here, because, sorry to say it, but Orchestra Hall looks very tired compared to Hoyt Sherman. So I just want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing in making this a viable place that I think rivals those type of other venues in other much larger cities.
Thank you. We have people flying in. We had 2 couples fly in to see Diana Krall from London because they could get 8th row center seats for $105. They would pay £500 to see her at Royal Albert Hall in London. And they thought, what the hell, let's give Des Moines a try. They got here, they saw the Arts Center, they saw the sculpture park. Every day that they were in town, they kept emailing me back and saying, I didn't know this existed. So that cultural tourism, it is a gem. We're a gem of a city. Thank you.
Last question.
Okay.
Can you address the art collection that you have?
Sure. So the art collection was originally started by the Women's Club. Ironically, the president of the club at the time became the first female reporter at the Washington Post, but she said, ladies, I think this should be our thing. Let's collect art. So they started buying at the World's Fairs. They only had 10 pieces, but as word got out, more and more families donated, and it was Nason Bartholomew Collins, who was on the board of directors of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, who had a very expensive Victorian art collection. He moved to Des Moines in 1900, started manufacturing and different things. He gifted 5 pieces to the Des Moines Women's Club in 1923, right when the theater was opening. So the $4.5 million one that I found in the closet, the year that they gave it to him, they just put it in there. They thought it was a little too risque. It's a backside nude of Venus de Milo, but that turned out to be a $17.5 million painting. He also gave them the Frederick Edwin Church that sold for 4.2. So it's all Victorian. We had a benefactor who was on the chief curator for the Chicago Art Institute, Barry Bauman, restored all of their pieces when he retired and sold his business. He was retired for a week and his wife said, Barry, go back to work, you're driving me crazy. So he adopted our little museum and fully restored all 54 of our paintings free of charge, just by paying to ship them to Chicago and his materials to clean them. We had the frames restored, so every single piece in there now is pristine and beautiful.
Great presentation, Robert. Thank you for spending part of your Thursday with us, and thank you for making Des Moines the great place that it is. So appreciate that. All right, upcoming speakers. So next week, no meeting here. The Embassy Club is not available. As you know, we have 2 events next week. Tuesday is the multi-club event, if you signed up for that. All these signups are past due. And then Thursday is our own Thank Fall event, where we're meeting at Jester Park, having a phenomenal barbecue and get together. We have over 60 Rotarians and their families coming together. So it's gonna be a great evening next Thursday night. Then the other speakers coming up, we have October 3rd, Monty Shaw heads up the Iowa Renewable Fuels Association, and Ann Seltzer, a political pollster, I guess. So that'll be very interesting and timely on October 10th. So think about bringing a guest, inviting somebody that might be interested in one of those 2 programs, October 3rd and October 10th. Other upcoming events. Before I talk about upcoming, we just had a fuel event this past Tuesday. Another 20 of us gathered at Freedom Blend Coffee, and we learned a lot about our own Lynette Rasmussen. What a great story. John, you were there. What a great story she has in building up to the CEO of the Rasmussen Group, and learning a lot about her, and then getting to know the other Rotarians there. So think about coming to our next fuel. Will be in October, and we will highlight our own past president, Matt Busick, a dear friend of mine, and a story that I know, but all of you need to know, about great positivity, about great success coming out of tragedy. So we'll all learn a lot by coming to that October 29th, 9 to 10, Freedom Blend Coffee, October 29th. So I hope to have you sign up there with Kitty. Okay, our pillar slide. Today I want to focus on community impact. So we've had an opportunity to impact our community with Christina's event, with the coat drive. So just think about that. How can you make your community better? How can we make our Rotary Club better in positively impacting our community? And since Matt's here, because he's also the president of our foundation this year, think about end of year giving to our foundation to continue to grow our impact in the community. Thank you, Robert, again for coming. Thank you to the greeters, appreciate that. Thank you all for being here and making the Rotary Club of Des Moines just an amazing organization. Make it a great Rotarian week. We are adjourned.